It is my great honor to introduce the president of Naropa, Chuck Leaf, and the vice president, MCIC, Regina Smith, to the stage. Please put it together.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. I'm going to give 50 years of Naropa in 90 seconds, so you need to listen fast, please. First, I want to welcome Dr. West to Naropa. Naropa has thrived for 5 decades because it's been a conversion of genuine lineages and genuine lineage holders. And Dr. West is a luminary from a lineage that is now blessing Naropa with his presence, and we're very grateful to have him here. 50 years ago in 1974, we were still raw from the wounds that were created by the murders of Dr. King, Malcolm X, Robert Kennedy. We gathered together in Boulder at the invitation of Naropa's founder, the Tibetan Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who himself was a victim of genocide, of political turmoil, and had arrived in the West with the idea that we could start a university that would bring together the contemplative traditions of many of the world religions, along with the academic training that seemed needed at the time and is still needed now. We also gathered together at a summer when, in the middle of our summer process, a president of the United States resigned in disgrace, and we bore witness to that sitting here in Boulder, Colorado. It was within that container that a group of faculty and students, faculty representing the disciplines of religious studies, theological practitioners, environmentalists, neuroscientists, artists of all kinds, who brought to this container music and dance and poetry and writing, energizing 2,000 people in Boulder. We were hoping for a couple of hundred. We got 2,000. We figured out what to do. But within that container, we imagined the creation of a university, remembering not just about a decade before Dr. King's exhortation in Washington that we pay attention to the fierce urgency of now. And the fierce urgency of now was relevant then, and it's relevant today. Nobody missed the boat because you weren't in DC. Nobody missed the boat because you weren't here in 1974. The boat's right here, and we're all on it together. And it's incredibly important for us to know that. My 20 seconds left. Naropa was built on a foundation of contemplative practice. And a question that came up all the time at the beginning was, does a contemplative practitioner have the ability to be a social activist and a political activist and hold true to the contemplative traditions? And the answer was unequivocally yes. In fact, a contemplative practitioner that has any success is one that experiences and open to their own suffering and to the suffering of others around them, and actually makes a vow and a commitment to do something about healing that suffering. And so not only is the contemplative practitioner encouraged to be an activist, a contemplative practitioner isn't one if he's not or she is not an activist. And that's the work that we're doing today. So I want to welcome you all. I will turn this over to my colleague, Regina, and welcome to Naropa.
Good evening and welcome. I'm so happy to be with you tonight on this fortuitous moment. I feel deeply blessed to be here with you and deeply blessed to be here with you, Dr. West. I want to thank everyone who made this happen, all of the forces, both seen and unseen, that saw it fit that Naropa's timeline and the timeline of Dr. West could converge. And I want to personally, and I'm a crier, so I'm like working with that already. Thank God in the other room you said tears are a form of love and prayer. But I want to personally just thank you for how you've been a guiding light in my life. As a Black woman who navigates a lot of white space, to have you here means so much. So. So, like you, Dr. West, I am also deeply committed to the moral virtues of truth, justice, and love. And that is what has kept me at this university in Boulder, Colorado, when I'm from the East Coast, for as long as I've been here, which is since 2009. Because at the core of this university is training. We come here to be trained. We train not just our students, but ourselves, our staff, and faculty to feel our own suffering and the suffering of others so that we can be, as you say, in solidarity with them. And we actually have the spiritual technology to do this, which has been around for thousands of years. We train ourselves, our staff, our faculty, and students to cultivate the courage, once we can feel our suffering and the suffering of others, to actually do something about it. And that is what makes us radical. We train in sitting and other forms of contemplative meditation to discern the truth. And once we know the truth in our guts, we train in courage so that we can tell the truth. We train in opening our hearts so that we can love more and more and more, even when it's uncomfortable. And as Dr. West has taught, justice is what love looks like in public. So we train, and once we know that love, to take righteous action and do something about it. So again, on behalf of Naropa University, one of the most radical institutions in the United States, we welcome you, Brother West.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle, for getting us, for rousing us. For helping us use our voices, practice using our voices. I'll just say in our life, Michelle's the one that's like, Ramon, go. And you know, we've been doing what we can do for 20 plus years. And actually, I want to start there for a reason. Go back to like 1996, 97, fall of 96, winter of 97. And I was a student at Colorado College, undergraduate college student. And I was in this place called Shove Chapel, and I was with like one of the only other, me and my buddy John, two black hippies in a largely white school, somewhat similar to the situation of Naropa. And we were sitting in the like balcony, and we were looking down, and on the stage was Dr. West. I don't know if you remember Colorado College, 1996, 97, Shove Chapel. I know you've given a lot of talks, so I'm sure you know. But and we were sitting there listening to Dr. West speak, and both of us, we were like, does he have an aura? We thought we saw like these waves, like whoa, 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 coming off of him. You know, and you know, it could be just tricks of the eyes, but it was, for us, it was like, it was really important. It was important for us to see an intellectual, a leader, somebody who was in that kind of prophetic stream, and whose life experience and whose study reflected, and not just reflected, but drew from our life experience and our study. And, you know, we used to walk out of classes and, you know, Michelle and I would talk about this a lot. We would walk out of classes and we just learned that, what did we learn? We learned like that people in Zimbabwe were growing roses for people in the United States, And I mean, here we are giving these roses to each other as emblems of love, and people were getting paid nothing. They didn't own the land that was theirs. I would walk out of class and I was like a ticking time bomb. I was like, how are we just gonna, and then people were throwing Frisbees and stuff. And I was just like, we were like, so it was important for us to see and hear someone at that time who actually could make words and make intelligence and make direction out of that inner roar that we felt. And I'm not saying that just because we were Black students at a white institution, I'm not saying that white people can't feel it. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that we did. And a lot of times we couldn't hear that around us. And part of the thing is that as college students, we were learning about what we call America actually is. And when you learn about what this place actually is, it's some pretty serious cognitive dissonance. Okay? And I think a lot of the people here now have spent, Joseph came up here and he just gave you links to explore. Okay? A lot of the people here have really taken time to learn, like, what happened here? What happened in Colorado, what we call Colorado? You know, what happened, whatever, wherever you're from, what happened here? What does the United States mean to the world? And do we even know who we are in the eyes of the world? Someone said, we were saying this earlier, we don't use the word empire enough. We don't understand. We look, but we build our dams and we say Egypt, Rome. You know, we track ourselves by the lineage of empires, but we can't even see that we're in that lineage. And so we have this narrative cognitive dissonance issue happening here in the United States, where a large part of the population has internalized what we are as a totality. And a large part of the population of the United States has not. And are afraid, because it's not just what they are, it's what we are. And they're afraid to really look at and put together inside of them what we actually are. And I think this is part of why some people are not prepared to vote for someone like Dr. West. You know, we were just in the next room over, a group of students, conflict transformation. Where you at? Okay, we were just in the room over, and Dr. West went and took time with us. He went past the schedule. We went on black time. It was, we just went into it. We went past the schedule, and he really was, he was being there with us. And that's the kind of leadership we need. We need leadership that will really go there and go into the depths with us. Because if we're going to change this society, we got to go into the depths. We got to go into the basement. And we also have to really, from that real internalized place, we have to tell a newer and a deeper and an older and a more futuristic story about what we are as a nation and what we can become. We got an endeavor right now where we're calling it Electric Black Earth, April 18th through the 21st. We're getting together on this campus with local change makers, healers, scholars, artists, and national scholars, artists, Black, brown, whoever, okay? But really centered in that, the blues tradition. I heard you say once, Dr. West, I'm actually a bluesman. So that's happening here, April 18th through 21st. And our objective is really to dwell on and try to embody that new future that's coming from that blues perspective. And so, we got to do that as a nation. You know, we need leaders that are really seeing. We're in the 21st century now. You know, people are putting billions of dollars to replicate our intelligence, and meanwhile, the human brain, you got human beings out laying dying on the street. This is the most expensive object in the cosmos. You know, and then I think this is the last thing. I know my time's up. I'm pushing in black time a little. You know, I think I was listening to Dr. West. I was a philosophy student in college. Listening to him really get to the philosophy, get into, and what do we mean by philosophy? Philosophy as in reflect deeply, integrate the different parts of yourself, and then come out your life from that. Can we have a politics that's actually integrated and that's actually based on reflection and not just expediency? You know, I mean, I will put it like this. Can the philosopher be king? Can the philosopher be sovereign? Is America actually ready to elect Dr. West? Ready, yeah. Okay, and we know that what needs to happen can't be done by one person. It absolutely cannot. We need leadership that's actually going to raise the sovereign. I'm going to take the gender out of it. The sovereign function in every one of us. We need leadership that's actually going to raise the hearts of every one of us and cultivate our local, like Michelle and Mika were saying, our local community by community leadership and empower us to actually build that new future, whatever this place is. Is it America? Is it Turtle Island? Whatever it's called, we're all here. And we're stuck with each other. So, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. West.
What a blessing to be here. What a blessing to be here. Oh, indeed. Lord, you all been standing a long time. You in much better shape than I am, I can tell you that. You don't have to stand up. If you want to sit, you can sit and relax. Go on and sit and relax, though. Indeed, it's getting late in the evening, too. You're going to relax. But I want to thank each and every one of you. And the introduction, oh, brother, I appreciate it. What a dynamic couple. What a dynamic duo. Ramon and Michelle. Oh, Lord. And you see how blessed I am to work with Brother Max, though. Oh, give it up for my brother. No, I love you. Indeed. Oh, I see Sister Jamila there, too. Yes, I see her there. Where's your wonderful husband? Oh, God bless him, Abs. Oh, I hear you. And I'm also blessed with one of the finest legal minds and golden hearts. I'm talking about Brother Mike and Dan. Love you so much. And when I arrived at the airport today, I must say, I encountered such sweet spirit. That's Mika. That's Myrna. That's Mika and Myrna. Where are they? Oh, and where's Myrna? Where is she? There she is. Yeah, that's my Puerto Rican sister right here. Oh, yes, and my Israeli Jewish brother right here. He's a freedom fighter. But you can see that I'm just so deeply, deeply moved. The dialogue that I just had with these magnificent, high-quality students was really just, it was mind-blowing because it was a fusion of the analytical mind and the courageous soul. And we need more than anything the enabling virtue, which is courage. You know, Brother Martin Luther King used to say, I'd rather be dead than afraid. Isn't that something? I'd rather be dead than afraid. I remember Daddy King, his father, told me that he could never get over what he saw when Martin Luther King Jr. had been in a paddy wagon in the dark with a German Shepherd for 4.5 hours, riding from ATL, A-Town, Atlanta to Reedsfield Prison in Jim Crow, Georgia. And he got out of that paddy wagon and he could not walk a straight line. All he could say was, this is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people. Cross is not something you talk about. It's something you bear and something you're willing to die on. Now, I know I'm in a Tibetan Buddhist context. And Bell Hooks was one of the grandest souls and spirits in my life. She was a black Buddhist sister. Yes, she was. Just like Ambedkar, one of the great Buddhists coming out of the Dalit tradition in India. Herbie Hancock, my dear brother who I've traveled country with, Buddhist as well. You see. But when we talk about cross connection to courage, what we're really talking about is, are we willing to seriously examine ourselves in such a way that we make choices in the name of integrity, honesty, decency, generosity for others, and pay a cost? That's what bearing the cross is all about. So that anytime you talk about justice, freedom, equality, you got to start by examining yourself. So you don't start with name calling and finger pointing. You got to examine yourself. So I begin with myself. I'm a cracked vessel. But I am who I am because somebody loved me. And somebody cared for me. Somebody sacrificed for me. I'm talking about Irene B. West, my mama. I'll never, ever be half the human being she was, or my father, Clifton L. West Jr., or my pastor, Reverend Willard P. Cook, who baptized me on the chocolate side of Sacramento, California, in Shiloh Baptist Church. Deacon Hinton was a leader in my church. And it was a blessing to see the captains of the ship when I met with Brother Chuck and Sister Regina and my other dear sister, whose name is Sister Judy. Absolutely. Leadership matters in one's own context or any context. But each time I get up to talk about justice, I have to remind myself how I get fortified. And I'm nothing but a small, small wave in a great ocean. Because I come from a tradition of a great black people. Oh, yes. 400 years of being chronically hated every day, every week, every year. And yet, at our best, we keep dishing out these love warriors in the face of hatred. Where does Sojourner Truth come from? Where does Harriet Tubman come from? Where does Frederick Douglass come from? Where does Ida B. Wells come from? Where does John Coltrane's Love Supreme come from? Where does Stevie Wonder's Love and Need a Love come from? The OJ's Love Train, those are not just songs or forms of entertainment. Those are choices that human beings make under the most indescribable adverse circumstances and conditions. That's part of the tradition I want to be a part of. And it's no accident that there's never been a black version of the Ku Klux Klan. I tell my vanilla brothers and sisters, when you see black people, you ought to just give them a standing ovation. Just give them a standing ovation. You say, what do you mean, Brother West? What do you mean, brother? Just give them a ovation. It's true. You ask them, if there had been a black version of the Ku Klux Klan, there would have been a civil war every generation. You wouldn't have what's left of the democracy. And your music would be rather flat. Now, I know we got some talented vanilla brothers and sisters out there. Now, I understand that. Frank Sinatra ain't no joke. Hall & Oates got it going on. Eminem is a genius. But no Eminem without Dr. Dre. When they asked Frank Sinatra who's his favorite, he said a genius from Baltimore City named Billie Holiday. And of course, Hall & Oates was discovered by Gamble & Huff from the Philly Sound. So what we're talking about is not just skin pigmentation. We're talking about people under vicious circumstances making choices such that they hold up a bloodstained banner of love. And it has much to do with the gift of our precious Jewish brothers and sisters in that Hebrew scripture. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with thy God. Spread that hesed, that steadfast love, that loving kindness to the orphan and the widow, the fatherless and the motherless, the oppressed, the persecuted. Yes, Allen Ginsberg understood that. He was here. I knew Brother Allen. I loved that brother. Me and he and Rabbi Lerner and I would travel the country as part of the Tikkun magazine operation. That's the best of our Jewish brothers and sisters. And like anybody else, all human beings have the capacity to terrorize and traumatize even after they have been terrorized and traumatized. It's a human story at the deepest level. So in the face of the terror, how do we produce freedom fighters for everybody? Yes, that's A. Philip Randolph. That's Fannie Lou Hamer. In the face of the trauma, how do you produce wounded healers? Not wounded hurters, wounded healers. I'm talking about a moral and spiritual greatness. Every culture, every civilization, every human being has the capacity to aspire to. But it's no accident that in the belly of this particular imperial beast called the USA, and I'm talking about USA at its worst, not its best, because I look at the world through the lens of a Palestinian Jew named Jesus, who said, what you doing to the least of these, you do unto me. So I want to know, how are you treating your indigenous brothers and sisters? I want to know, how are you treating your poor, no matter what color? How are you dealing with women in the face of patriarchal bombardment? Are you treating your gay brothers and your lesbian sisters with humanity and honor? Are you keeping in contact with the children who have twice the poverty rate as everybody else? Are you staying in contact with the elderly? Those are not just empty rhetorical gestures. They're part of a way of being in the world. Now, it's true, I don't exist without Malcolm X. He's a Muslim brother. I don't exist without Muhammad Ali. And given my love for Coltrane, I don't exist without Naima Coltrane, his first wife, who was a Muslim, who convinced him to keep playing jazz when he gave up given his heroin addiction. What are you talking about, Brother West? What does this got to do with a campaign? No, I always begin with the traditions of resilience and resistance. This campaign ain't nothing but a moment in a movement. My dear brothers were so right with Joseph's reflections. Other formulations. If we're not part and parcel of social motion, social momentum, and if we're lucky, social movements, then we have very little chance of coming to terms with the depths of the catastrophes. What I love about this institution is, one, I've been bowing for 40 years. I didn't know it was a Naropa bow. Every time I see a human being, I bow. And I get here and everybody's bowing. I said, they didn't do that at Harvard, Yale, at Princeton, or Union Theological Seminary where I teach. But one of the crucial features of this institution is that when you take religion seriously, given that most institutionalized religion tends to accommodate itself to empire and white supremacy and male supremacy and structures of domination and predatory capitalist processes. Our churches, our mosques, our synagogues, they so quickly accommodate themselves. I'm talking about the prophetic slices of our religious traditions. And then the rich prophetic slices of our secular traditions. I've got a deep, deep commitment to the best of secularity. You see, Diderot means much to me. Edward Said means much to me. I had a whole lot of communist and socialist comrades who are deeply secular, like Angela Davis. Oh, she come out of Black Baptist tradition of Birmingham, Alabama, but she made a secular move. Yes, human beings, everybody's who they are, not somebody else. Choices that you make have to do with what is the quality of the integrity that you are. And you find it in a variety of different traditions. Now, I have a real penchant for the musicians. I believe musicians are the vanguard of the species. Beethoven's much deeper than Hegel. Coltrane is much deeper than most literary figures in the black tradition. Toni Morrison is the only one that really gives him a run for his money, I got to acknowledge that, though. Ralph Ellison his own way, too. Baldwin certainly too. But my point is this, that you can't begin to talk about politics or a campaign unless you talk about courage to think critically for yourself, courage to love without asking for anybody else's permission, courage to laugh on your own terms, courage to be yourself, recognizing yourself as forever dynamic, changing over time, and therefore you are open to maturation. And the benchmark of maturation is what? Humility and tenacity at the same time. Nobody has a monopoly on truth or beauty or goodness. But at the same time, you have to be willing to take a stand. That's where the courage comes in, to straightening your back up. Brother Martin used to say, anytime poor people, working people, folk in solidarity with oppressed people straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere, because folk can't ride your back unless it's bent. Straighten it up. Used to be a brother in my church named Sylvester, known to the world as Sly Stone. And he wrote a song called Stand, You've Been Sitting Much Too Long. There's a permanent crease in your right and wrong. Yes. What is it about the musicians? They do not allow us to reduce catastrophes into problems. One of the reasons why we are so spiritually, intellectually, and in many ways politically ill-equipped for this particular historical moment is because in our universities and colleges and our mainstream media, among our journalists, they think we just have problems. There's never been a race problem in America. There's been catastrophes visited upon Black people, indigenous people. And when you reduce the catastrophic to the problematic, you've already deodorized your discourse. You've already sanitized it. You've already sterilized it in such a way that you cut back on your fortitude to confront catastrophe. That's why when my brother talks about the blues is not about a problem. Billie Holiday sings about strange fruit that the Jewish brother Naropa wrote about black bodies swaying in the southern breeze. That's not a problem. That's a catastrophe. Same is true for our working people, working class, each working people's problem. No, catastrophes visited upon them, given the greedy bosses and given the obsession with profit, more profit, social needs, afterthought. Never been a woman's problem. The catastrophes visited upon women, all colors and nations. So how do we remain attentive so we can be attuned to what is bombarding us? Ecological catastrophe, possible nuclear catastrophe, economic catastrophe, grotesque wealth inequality. 3 individuals have wealth equivalent to half the population. 160 million. That's a key sweat moment. Something just ain't right. Something just ain't right. 1% of the population own 90% of the wealth. That's levels of organized greed, out of control, and it has a long history. Yes, it goes back to imperialism, colonialism, and so forth. It has been intensified since 1973 with the deep crisis in the world capitalist economy and the U.S. empire that sits at the top of these layers of catastrophe. It's almost echoes of Walter Benjamin's great thesis on history and the angel of history dealing with the pilage of wreckages on catastrophes. And we wonder whether, in fact, first can we see them, and then what do we do about them? And what is, again, so distinctive about this institution is always connecting the spiritual and the social, the personal and the political, the existential and the economic, because it's spiritual catastrophes that go hand in hand with the political ones, the economic ones, the ecological ones, and the social ones. How does one equip oneself? And so this campaign is about, first, let's just be honest and candid about the catastrophes. Oh, yeah. We live in a moment of such overwhelming spiritual decay and moral decadence where the richest nation in the history of the world could have over 20% of their precious children and almost 30% of children of color living in poverty. I was just in LA the other day at Skid Row, 15,000 folk in a city of unhousedness in the richest nation in the history of the world. That's a level of callousness. That's a level of indifference. And Rabbi Heschel is right. Indifference to evil is more insidious than evil itself. And we have a whole culture of indifference, of turning one's back on poor and working people. And then you end up with a political system of legalized bribery and normalized corruption with big money, not just dictating, but sometimes outright paying politicians and writing legislation for their own interests, as poor and working people are an afterthought. We saw it with Brother Bernie. I've got some challenges with Bernie later. We won't get into that right now. I love my brother, but he's wrong when it comes to not talking about the ceasefire, the end of the siege, and the end of the occupation. Oh, no, that about that. But I love my brother. He's wrong. Bernie, what? He knew that over 70% of American citizens wanted Medicare for everybody, a single payer health care, but it can never get through. The lobbies are too powerful, the money is overflowing. So you end up with such a, not just fragmented, but a shameful medical system. Same is true with our schools. Same is true with the power of capital over working people. Greed out of control. And it's certainly true with an empire that has 800 military units around the world and special operations in over 130 countries, has a military budget more than the next 10 countries combined. And some folks still want to say, we're not an empire, we're just a nation. Get off the crack pipe. There have been 70 empires going back to the beginnings of civilization in Africa. United States is number 68. And empires come and go. And so many of them begin to collapse internally owing to military overreach, corruption of elites across the board, frustration and impotence of citizens who more and more feel as if a dominant response ought to be one of blaming themselves, or addiction, some critical distance from the overwhelming pain and anxiety, and then the notion that there is no alternative. Just get used of dealing with the status quo. And this comes in all colors. It comes in all colors. We had this challenge with Brother Obama. Everybody thought he was going to be messianic. And we could see so clearly that beautiful black family tied to the very, very ugly organized greed of Wall Street that he bailed out. Insider trading, market manipulation, predatory activity, fraudulent activity. How many Wall Street gangsters went to jail? 0. But let Jamal and Letitia get caught with a crack bag, off to jail, throw away the key. Hypocrisy. Overwhelming hypocrisy. So it's not a question of just what color you are. It's whose side that you're on. We just saw that in Standing Rock. That was a beautiful moment, wasn't it? Folk came together. We saw with George Floyd Jr. and the public lynching. Folk came together. But how do we sustain that kind of solidarity? It cannot be episodic. And you all and I know that when you're talking about justice, you're not talking about a lifestyle to help your career. You're talking about a way of being in the world that you're willing to live for, and some of us are willing to die for. That's a whole different level. And I say that with a smile on my face. It's true, because I should have been dead a long time ago. It's true. All the mess I've been in, I've been to jail and so forth. So many guns pointed at me. I was talking with my dear sister. Let's give it up for my very, very sister, Malina Abdullah, the vice presidential running mate. Oh, yes. She's been to jail so many times, so many guns pointed at her, still standing tall. How come? Because we find joy in the struggle, and we know the only thing that breaks the back of fear is the love you have for the people, and the love you have for the people is connected to the love that's already been poured into you by folk who came before you. That's what keeps you going. That's what allows you to remain connected to not just campaigns, but movements. So it's not just a matter of the various platforms. It's true, I'm an abolitionist. Abolition is a fundamental thing of the Black freedom movement. We didn't want a reform of slavery. We didn't want a liberal version of slavery. We wanted the abolition of slavery. We didn't want a liberal version of Jim Crow and Jane Crow. A reform of lynching. You think about that, every 2.5 days for 50 years, some precious black bodies hanging from a tree. Well, we'll reform it. It would just be every other month we'll hang. Oh, I see. No. We come to police brutality and police murder. I want the abolition of it. I want the abolition of it. When it comes to folk not having access, having a right to housing, with gentrification, land grabs, and power grabs taking place, given the greed in the private equity and real estate industry. No, we want an abolition of that. We want a fundamental transformation of that. How come? Well, it's a basic conviction. The basic conviction. The life of a poor and working class people has exactly the same value as anybody else's life. That's just as elemental and fundamental as you can get. But if you really believe that, then that makes you rather subversive. It's just like if you really believe that a Palestinian baby has exactly the same value as any baby around the world, then you come out swinging when you see 1, 2, 3 murders, let alone 15,000. Basic moral, spiritual compass. That's what's lacking in American politics. And people ask me on television all the time, you just don't come across as a regular politician. I said, you don't say. That's like trying to fit a jazz man in a military band. I'm gonna play off the notes and under the notes and flatten some of those notes. Because those are blue notes of dignity, blue notes of defiance. That's my tradition. So when I get in the political realm, you think I'm gonna be a different kind of brother than I've been for the last 50 years? No, not at all. But what they attempt to do is to make you more scared and afraid. I announced in June, the second week, they said, our campaign is fundamentally responsible for pushing America into fascism. I said, wow, I didn't know I had that much power. If I had that much power, I would have abolished poverty a long time ago. I'd have massive redistribution of wealth downward a long time ago, and I would have dismantled the American empire a long time ago. Oh, yeah. But in many ways, that's a positive thing, because they already see you as a threat. They can't dismiss you. And that had nothing to do with just me. It had to do with the folk who are working with me. It has to do with folk who are standing alongside. And that's what puts a smile on my face, too. Because no matter how grim and dim catastrophic times are, let us never, ever, ever allow catastrophe to have the last word. No, that's what the blues is all about. B.B. King said, nobody loves me but my mama, and she might be jiving too. Sounds like Antigone and Sophocles, doesn't it? Everything in the world against you, and you're dependent on your mama, and she might be jiving. That is catastrophe. But B.B. is singing the song with such style, with a little help from Lucille, his guitar. And if you listen closely, you can hear Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey and Robert Johnson in his sound. Because if I look closely in your hearts and souls of each and every one of you, I see some love folk who poured into you things that allow you to preserve your sanity and your dignity. None of us in this alone. And that's what this campaign is all about. A call for a moral and spiritual awakening with subversive consequences, revolutionary implications, putting poor and working people at the center of our vision, not just in the United States, but around the world. I am an internationalist. I believe, in fact, that the role of America is one that can empower poor and working people in Latin America, in Africa, in Caribbean, in Europe, in Asia, across the national borders. That's what we're talking about. Oh, yeah. And that's the best of spirituality. That's the best of morality. Human beings and connected to sentient creatures, connected to nature, learning the great wisdom and insights of our indigenous brothers and sisters that taught us to treat nature as a thou rather than an it, in the language of Martin Buber. How do we understand Mother Earth herself? Yes, this is what is required. And let us be honest. There's no guarantee we will win. See, Americans have this juvenile notion. Well, I don't want to do anything unless I think that you can win. If that's true, black folk will still be in slavery. The working class would have no rights of collective bargaining. Women would still be dealing with patriarchal subjugation. The gay brothers and lesbian sisters would still be demeaned and degraded. No, we got to fight. We got to fight. And we got to fight together. And in fighting together doesn't mean there's unanimity. We got to think of ourselves as a jazz band. But Mary Lou Williams is on the piano and Count Basie's on the piano and Duke Ellington is on the piano. He's not asking folk in the band to sound the way he wants to sound. Raise your own voice. The very anthem of black people is lift every what? That's right, it's not lift every echo. See, we live in a culture of echoes. It's expressing silos, given the polarization and the balkanization of the culture. No, think for yourself and find your voice. Just like your fingerprint, raise your voice. But we can have unity with a variety of different voices. And I told the young folk, and I'm gonna stop here, I told the young folk earlier today, I said, we got to go beyond even this talk about allies and allies, you know. See, when I go with my feminist sisters year in and year out, I might begin as an ally, but after the third year, they say, well, I think he's actually in solidarity with us. He just keeps showing up. That's what we want. That's what we want. You get vanilla brothers and sisters showing up when police shooting down black folk, month after month after month. You are graduated from ally to deep member of the group based on the fact that you have earned it and respected it. It's like Miles Davis's quintet with Bill Evans, who was a vanilla brother who played the piano. Miles didn't turn to Coltrane and say, play your solo, and he blows, and then turn to Bill Evans and say, now we're gonna hear from our white ally. He's in the motherfucking band. He wouldn't be in the band if he hadn't earned it. And Bill Evans knows he's in the band because he sounded so good. Same is true with Greg playing the drums for Sly and the Family Stone. He's a white brother playing the drums. They don't turn to him and say, white ally. No, he's earned it. Play your drummer song, brother. That's what we have in solidarity. Deep commitment to truth and condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. And we had to be very, very bold about our vision and analysis. Capitalism at the center of it. Profit, monopolies, oligopolies, not just billionaires in some isolated way. These are structures, these are systems that we have to call out, no matter what color the folk are, on moral and spiritual grounds. Imperial policies, yes, in Gaza. Biden, you want to redeem the soul of the nation, but enable genocide and ethnic cleansing and apartheid-like conditions. Please, we were born at night, but not last night. But also AFRICOM on the continent of Africa. Also policies in Latin America. Alliances with neo-fascists in Hungary. We can go on and on and on. We have to be consistent across the board. And can we do it? We don't know. We don't know. I don't believe in inevitability. They could blow up the whole planet tomorrow. We say, well, we had a good time in Naropa last night. Let the cockroaches take over now. That's real. You know, the famous words of one of the greatest blues figures of the barbaric 20th century. His name was Samuel Beckett. I love that brother. He fought in the resistance against French, the German Vichy regime. And Sartre and the others were writing, but they wasn't part of the resistance the way Samuel Beckett was. And he says, my favorite word in all of the English language is perhaps. Perhaps. Because you can't talk about the future without talking about the degree to which we intervene in the present to make that future better. You don't talk about the future in the form of a bystander and a spectator. You've got to be an agent and intervener so that when we come together, we authorize a better future and we create that future in light of our solidarity work together. That's what this campaign is about. And you all been so kind to stay so long, but I salute you. And I do hope you do decide to become part of this campaign. There's no doubt about that. But if you don't, and I believe in defending people's right to be wrong, I'm a libertarian about these things. You know, you disagree with me? I don't believe in Pied Pipers. I'm a judge, man. I don't believe in Pied Pipers. Everybody got to follow one leader. No, not at all. You got a whole lot of folk who are forces for good out there. But I'm thoroughly convinced that this campaign at this particular historical moment is the most important way of intervening. And I do ask for your help. Thank you so very much. Stay strong in what you're doing. Need you to be part and parcel of wrestling with this corporate duopoly, this two-party system that impedes, it gets in the way of the unleashing of the kind of policies of abolishing poverty and homelessness, of dealing with working wages, cutting back on militarism, and most importantly, trying to ensure that the best of who we are as a people can be more manifest, can be more concrete, because the crisis is real and these catastrophes are bombarding us. Please come join us.